So I walk into the office today, which is like, I work here and you guys are all here. And like, I've seen a few of you walk around a little bit, but like you guys, everyone knows you as like the AI interns, right? Like everyone calls you collectively, which is just like the local young Boston crowd that's like all in on AI. And so like, I show up today and you guys are giving these amazing presentations about everything you've been working on. Like your Python code is incredibly clean. And I couldn't pass the opportunity to like sit down and just like learn from each of you, like just share like kind of like what you're, where you're at school, like what year you're in, if you're comfortable what your name is. And then I'd love to just know like what is the most interesting insight that you guys have learned like this summer? Because am I right? Like, what was the mandate this summer, right? Like, what did they tell you when they showed up and they're like, do AI? Like,
yeah, I'll start. Am I holding this right?
You can just talk right into it like a mic, dude. Yeah,
all right.
Yeah.
My name is Jimmy. I go to Northeastern.
Right on.
And I would say the most eye-opening thing that has become apparent for me this summer is the order of growth for AI, and just the exponential growth that is going to completely transform the way we operate, the way we do many things in our lives in the next 5 to 10 years. And so I'm excited to see where that goes. I've also enjoyed working with building neural networks, going through the whole process of working with data, working in Python to create neural networks has also been really fun for me.
What a time to be alive. What did they tell you guys this summer, like when you showed up and you're like working in this warehouse? Like what did they say?
So I'm Yash. I'm going into my senior year of high school, and this is actually my second year here. And the way they
did this last year?
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
So last year,
Okay.
Last year was all about learning all this stuff, but
Okay.
the way Daniel and Sean pitched this year was kind of just taking everything you've learned and you're still learning it and trying to turn it into actual projects. And obviously that sounds amazing to me because that was the end goal last summer too. And just the idea of taking all the stuff that we learned about artificial intelligence, about programming, everything, and just trying to turn it into these tools that are easily accessible to everybody and everybody can use to like improve their daily lives, whether it be just their chores or educating themselves or whatever it might be. Sounded awesome to me.
So where'd you spend most of your time this summer?
This summer, probably just, we started learning a lot of front-end coding, trying to turn those back-end projects that we want to do into actual functional websites. So learning HTML, JavaScript, all that stuff. And so we're trying to look into how to basically compile all the resources that are available to us, because obviously, especially nowadays, everything is just click of a button away. You have all access to all these amazing tools. It's just trying to figure out how you can combine them into something unique and useful.
Yeah. Who here's been programming the longest, do you think? Anyone here more than 2 years? I mean, you guys are...
That's a good point. Yeah.
So, all right, you're up.
Yeah.
So I think like this is a crazy time in history because like for everybody else's life, right? Like they grew up in like the deterministic era of compute, right? Like, is it like, I tell the thing to do this and like, if it doesn't do that, like you did something wrong as an engineer. And like, you guys are like coming into computer science in like a probabilistic sense, right? Like they use like the von Neumann was like the old school, if you guys had your comp sci, and now you have like probabilistic compute of like the outcome. So like you have lived like in both worlds a little bit, right? Like you were like just programming before the APIs were publicly available. Like tell me what it's been like to be on the very early end, but see that transition happen as a young person.
Yeah, so I've been programming since 7th grade, so that's about 6 years now. And at the beginning, it was definitely like, conditionals, like if statements, while loops, everything is just like hard coded. And since then, both because I've like learned a lot more, but also with like AI, it's all becoming a lot less like hard coding, but you're kind of doing like the basic stuff and figuring out how to get the computer to do more of it for you. So especially with like AI now, like you're really just trying to give the computer the smallest amount of information possible for it to do the rest of it for you. So like with ChatGPT now, like I can have it write like the structure of my code all for me, and then I'm just adding in like the actual like code that's actually doing exactly what I want. Or when I'm using the ChatGPT API, I'm figuring out that like I don't actually need to code this on myself. I want this thing to happen, so I get like the input from the user that I need, and I just feed it into ChatGPT. And that also means that then you can have it in kind of any format you want, which actually makes coding a lot more accessible, because previously like you could only code if you like actually knew all the syntax and everything. With ChatGPT now, whether you're actually using the API or you're just like going on ChatGPT and having it write the structure of the code for you, it's doing all of that syntactical stuff for you, or it just doesn't even need it at all. Like I can just give a prompt to ChatGPT, say like, I want an app that does this thing, and it'll give me all the syntax. And then if I need more of it, I just base it off of that, or I copy and paste, which means it's also, especially once you know how to code in one language, it's really easy to pick up another one, because you just ask ChatGPT, it does most of the syntax for you, and you just copy and paste, which is a completely different game than it was when I started, when it was like, all right, now I'm just going to focus on Python. Now I have to try to figure out Java that's different from Python in these certain ways and try to remember all of the ways that it's different. And I'm like going back and forth and forgetting semicolons everywhere because I don't know which language I'm coding in anymore. Now it's just like ChatGPT can do it all for you. You can just be like, code this in Python and now code this in Java.
Yeah, like it used to be like, get the manuals, look up the syntax, like the rate of delivery was just gated by like knowing perfunctory kind of like things that don't really matter. So it's super interesting that like this entire era of engineers can be so different. Who built a product this summer? Anyone build a product?
Yeah, so we're all working on like small projects, obviously, with like, you know, we're applying like every time we gain new knowledge, we immediately try to apply it. That's what we do here. Like people are learning Python, and the next week they have a Python project that calls the OpenAI API. So we're definitely doing like small things, but then there's definitely this greater goal to get some sort of final project out there. And you know, Yash and I, since we learned a lot of the AI component and coding components in the past few years that we've been doing this internship, we kind of jumped into the summer like straight into the product side. And I think Yash touched on this, but that has a lot to do with front end development, right? Like you have an idea and you can code it out in a Jupyter notebook or something, but then like how do you bring that to the web? How do you make that accessible? And that's actually kind of a barrier, because like with ChatGPT assistance and coding, you can almost get the back end of any project going like really quickly, but then it's like there's still this component of like UI and how do I push this out to people? And so that's kind of like the one barrier that Yash and I are working through right now. Like we have like this whole company idea, and most of it is like the problem we're running into is like, how do we get this onto a website? So we're like we're going through learning front end development, but this raises another question of like, how can we get through front end development as fast as we can so we can actually get the product to market? And that's just like a common issue with this, with having only like a few months in this internship. Like we have to go back to school, but like you want to learn this code as fast as you can in these 3 months, so that makes it really essential to use AI assistance in your coding. So that's one thing we're exploring a lot, is how can we like, we've been through this before in the past internship years. Like we're learning code the old fashioned way with curriculums. So because of that process, we're now in the product phase, and we're thinking, wait, how can we solve the problem we went through and teach code with AI assistance? That's like the exact problem we faced. We're now trying to circle back and solve that. And then hopefully like using that approach, we can spend less time learning and more time actually deploying products in the field this summer, have something to show when we go back to school.
That's amazing. And so what's the product? Give us the skinny.
Okay. Well, so we're trying to disrupt the education industry, and there's many ways we could do that, but the one that we're kind of narrowing in on is coding education. Because like I said, we learned how to code Python last summer, like through basic online curriculums, like has been available for the past 10 years. But we want to bring AI avatars to the space now and have like kind of a second pair of eyes as you're learning code at any point. So our idea was kind of have like an IDE with a AI avatar right next to it. And the avatar has vision over your screen. And the idea is that you can highlight any line of code at any point and get like a natural language description of what that code is contributing to the project. And another kind of detail we had with that was that if we're trying to make learning code as accessible as possible internationally, that natural language description of the code, like what is this actually doing, that can be in any language. Like if you're there's like coding is in English centric. Like Yash knows a lot about this. He was pulling up some stats. But yeah, coding is very English centric. So how can we like bring natural language and AI into the coding education space and make sure that people, like there might be a software engineer whose second language is English. And
Yeah.
they're coding in English, but
Right.
their first language is like China or Mandarin, for example.
Yeah.
But they can get a natural language description of what the code is doing
Yeah.
in their native language. But it's like they're not actually coding in Mandarin, for example.
Right.
They're coding in English, but they have a description in Mandarin of what
Yeah.
they're doing. So that can make coding just way more accessible and way easier to teach to like anyone internationally.
Yeah, that makes sense. You don't think about how much of a disadvantage it is to like you're now translating from like English to Mandarin to Python.
Yeah,
But like
exactly.
print is in English, right? Like hello, you know what I mean? And like obviously there's Mandarin versions of this, but it's like, oh, I hope they updated the most recent update into like so it's like really rad what you're doing. It's like really democratizing like what is the most important probably skill for all of us. So who is doing who's in like a crazy elite like math group, robotics group, like gaming group, like who falls in that category?
Anna and I both do competitive high school robotics. Anna just graduated high school, and I'm a rising junior in high school. But
You guys
we
are-
both,
You want to describe like the ANN? You just
You guys are insane.
yeah. But for
guys are insane.
our like deep learning projects, I ended up like going through stats from like 2016 onwards of like all the robotics teams that have competed, like documented. So that's about like 7,000 teams just from the past season. So times that by like since 2016, it's a lot of data, and I used all of the qualification matches that have ever been played to kind of try and predict which teams would qualify to the World Championship. So that's about like 3-ish% of teams will actually end up qualifying. And then I use location data from like where teams are based out of, and then the census and like SAT and ACT scores and like all this information that wouldn't really be correlated to like advancing to Worlds. But I tried to see if the AI could kind of pick up a pattern in between like data that isn't really exactly robotics data and see if that contributed to team successes or failures.
That's insane. And so I guess what were not your robotics takeaways, what were your sort of like AI application takeaways?
Definitely just like kind of similar to what Jimmy said earlier, just like the ever expanding capabilities of AI. We've talked a lot about in this internship specifically about just like how to stay kind of like at the front of AI. You have to be really updating your products and stuff like monthly. And then something that's been talked about kind of a lot recently in terms of AI news is like just like the data wall, and that the AI right now is only as like smart as like the data that you trained it on. So I definitely kind of saw that in my own project, and I'm definitely interested to see what like the next robotics season will look like if you have like all this AI powering robots. Like, can you have robots do a lot more if you can have an AI controlling them instead of just like hard-coded Java? So
It's so interesting. And so what is maybe we'll pass the mic, we'll give some love to the side of the couch. What's the like, where are you guys getting your information from, right? Is there like, are you guys like reading research papers, or is there like a super hot AI TikTok channel that like I should be on? Like,
We have not modernized the curriculum to
this is your guys' marketing channel, you know what I mean? You guys need to make AI
you guys could do
TikToks.
it all in like TikTok format. That would be pretty funny. Just like an infinite feed of AI, of like coding education content. No, so it's not that straightforward yet. We're kind of, so I'm Daniel. Sean and I designed the curriculum that they're kind of going through to get acquainted with AI and programming.
You're like running the program.
Yeah. And I just graduated from college, so these guys are like a couple years younger than me,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like on the same level in terms of their AI and
Yeah.
Python skills by the end of the summer. So it's pretty impressive
Yeah.
to watch you guys all rapidly going through all of this. But the approach right now is it's still very much emphasizing kind of the traditional way of learning programming skills, because frankly the AI is not quite at the point where it can do everything for us.
Right.
But it's getting closer to that every day, and so it's essential that you use the AI as you're writing your code and as you're learning. So we establish the fundamental skills that you need to basically be a competent programmer, and then once you're done with that, you move right into programming with AI. And so that's sort of our approach. And then obviously applying what you're learning is super important. So you guys have all been doing really cool mini projects that to be honest, totally shattered our expectations, and we're gonna have to raise the bar a lot for next year. And then you just dive right into something that is actually useful for the real world. So I really look forward to finishing that up with you guys later this summer.
And so how does this program evolve? I know you're kind of like organizing the ship here. Like, how does this program evolve next summer? Because I felt like it already evolved dramatically from a year ago when you were pulling things together.
That's so true. I mean, last summer, watching knowing the syntax for HTML and JavaScript was essential. And this year, like, it's already starting, you can see it starting to become less important as the AI develops. And particularly image data is something that's really new. So the ability to upload like a screenshot of what you want and then have the AI make it for you, that was not possible until recently. So all that stuff is really, really cool. And I'm sure next year there'll be even more that we can play around with. So we know we're gonna have to be dynamic and change things as they go. Yeah. And it's really exciting to just keep up with the latest and greatest and try and define what that scope looks like for the future interns.
And like, how does everyone like? All right, I'm like my cousin is at Northeastern theoretically. Like, how do everyone find each other? Like, I imagine like Gen AI in Boston colleges is not a niche interest. I imagine it's sort of like gained some steam. Like, where do people commune? Like, is there digital communities? Like, how is this organization even happening?
Specific to this group, or
I just think like if you're like a college kid in Boston and you want to be in on AI, like, which like how is this happening?
It's a good question, because like the pace of change in the realm of AI is so fast. Like, no curriculum is going to keep up with it, especially in these like really slow moving college
except for these guys' TikToks are going to launch.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're it's primed to disrupt. But like you kind of find like sub pockets. Like, I've found a few groups at Northeastern where they're just like, it's just insane, just talent density. These people who are so fascinated with AI and are just so excited to just start building stuff as fast as possible. And like a lot of them are CS kids, a lot of them are like data science kids, but like a few of them are kind of like random, like biology, like business, whatever. I'm like a business.
Gosh.
I'm a business and data science student, and I just kind of walked in and like there's just so much talent density in these little groups of people who are just cranking away at these AI products, and like that's kind of like exactly what we're trying to emulate here. Like, just like rapid fire curriculum. Like, literally, there are people here who hadn't touched Python 14 work days ago, and now they know Python. Then they moved on to building neural networks, and then developing intuition about like what the most cutting edge AI today looks like. And like, I think it's helping us start to understand where the field is going. Like, how many years out is AGI? Well, like, now we know if it's between like 2 or like 100, rather than like knowing if it's like 1,000 years away, 1,000,000. Like, you start to develop intuition about where the field is going by just like getting in the ground and like learning like what's kind of happening. So I think we're all doing that really effectively, which is awesome.
And we'll bounce it over here, give you some love. Like, what, like, you guys are all amazing. Like, what do people like you, like, what do you like want to do after college? Like, what is like cool, right? Like to get into, like, I think it was very like in 2014, like working at like Airbnb was like very cool, right? Like being like an early employee at like a Series C company was like pretty cool as well, right? Like what is like what is like optimal? What is like tier 1 in your minds?
Yeah, I think people are quickly starting to realize how much opportunity there is, especially in the tech field. So I feel nowadays it's mostly tech. But with AI, any product, any company that really integrates AI well has a very, I feel, sustainable and successful future. I feel like AI now is like you can apply it to almost anything, whether it's like a restaurant. We were thinking about implementing AI with the menus, or like in the subway doing the work that isn't really like, it's not very entertaining as a human being to be just touching a button every 30 minutes for something very, very low skill.
Yeah.
So with AI, where you can scale it as large as you want to, and with unlimited possibility, you can do a lot of things. And I feel like if as students after college we get into AI and start creating new things, it would be very cool and successful.
Who here like knows they are going to start a company one day?
We're all gonna start one by the end of this.
This is so everyone's starting one this year.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's so amazing. All right, one final takeaway. Who wants it? Like their biggest like, oh wow, learning from the summer they want to share.
I can share one. Besides the learning how to code, I don't have a coding background, and in the past month I learned how to code and create neural networks and really the just behind the scenes of AI and how it all works. But besides that, I feel the biggest highlight thing that I learned during my time here is how big AI is gonna get in the next few years.
Yeah.
Dave London, their dad, showed us this graph a few weeks ago, and it allows us to contextualize how big this is gonna be. And it was essentially like they measured the change in the world that came from a new product or invention.
Yeah.
So the biggest change we've had was from the engine during the Industrial Revolution. Yeah. That was the biggest change we had so far. And AI is estimated to be 4 times that change in today's world and in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Or even less.
Yeah.
So that was
an incredibly compressed timeline, right?
Yeah,
like what's the stat? Like that, like it's gonna be like 4x in 4 times less the size, or like is it or like 4 times like fewer years? Yeah. It's like a factor of 16 more. It's like the best time to be 22. Like period. It's like the bottom line takeaway. So well, like thank you guys for letting me randomly ask you guys what you're working on. Like I haven't even met most of you, but I've seen you guys around the office, and like I think like what it's very powerful to like be very young, hungry, and optimistic. Like I think a lot of folks will like look to you guys and like feel a little bit better about the world. Because like what you guys are going to do is so amazing, and how committed you guys are to learning is like super inspiring. And seeing you guys present a few hours ago, like when I was walking by and saw this going on, was like totally uplifted my day after like a really weird sales call. It's like, wow, like the world is bright. Like so thank you guys for the commitment you guys had this summer. Thank you for organizing everything with these guys. And we're in the back right. So yeah.